Hello there guys and ghouls, and welcome to number 18 of the Paranormal Investigation Stories. These stories are all about investigations that I personally, along with friends and team members, actually took part in. The one today takes us out of the comfort of our West Yorkshire home and transports us across the country into Wales and then beyond Wales onto the Island of Anglesey, where we investigate paranormal activity which has been reported in an old convent. Or to be honest, an old convent church. The convent has been dropped several years ago. This convent was run by the BON SAUVEUR order of nuns, who were from France, and they came and settled on the island of Anglesey, and they opened the convent, the school, etc, etc. And many of the islanders can remember the nuns, and many will also say they can remember how afraid of the nuns they were, because they were very austere, they were very stern looking people, and in certain people's opinion they were quite wicked in many ways. Anyhow, after driving for a couple of hours, we arrived in the beautiful seaside resort of Triada Bay, where we had booked ourselves in for a long weekend to coincide with the investigation. Triada holiday bungalows are quite basic, but they are also situated in such a wonderful place, and I would suggest that anybody listening or watching this should at some point visit the Triada Bay area, because it is absolutely stunningly beautiful, and it has been designated an area of outstanding natural beauty. The bungalows themselves stand approximately 3 miles away from the Okeldra Centre, which is the old convent. The Okeldra is now an arts centre, a cinema, a cafe and a meeting place for many different groups on the island. It's a very well used building, and it's just a wonderful place to be. I fell in love with it years ago, and I'm still in love with it today. On booking into the Triada bungalows, there was myself, there was Carrie Harrison, Ben Hardcastle, Charlie Patton, Charlie's a girl by the way, Jordan Taylor, and we had arranged to go to the Okeldra this particular night and do a full paranormal investigation. After spending a day in the Triada area, walking the dogs, playing on the beach, looking in the rock pools, etc, etc, we gathered all our stuff together and we set off to the Okeldra. We arrived at the Okeldra Centre at approximately 7:30 p.m. and we were met by Mike Gould, who is the centre manager, who basically said, "I'm leaving it up to you guys." I'd known Mike for quite a lot of years at this point, so he trusted us that we wouldn't create any problems or any damage within the building. He said, "This is the alarm system. When you leave in the morning, click this button and close the door behind you," which is what we did. So Mike left and we began to wander around the building, doing the usual baseline tests, etc, checking for natural drafts, anything which may appear paranormal yet had a normal earthly reason for it being there. Several people came and joined us that night. There was a girl called Kerry Jones, who was the daughter of a lady who lives on Anglesey called Jenny Wynne, who is now Jenny Wynne Woods. She married a guy called Woody Woods, who had moved from Flint in North Wales and had settled on Anglesey with Jenny. They got married, and Woody continues to look after Jenny and to create music. He likes to create ambient music, and he also likes to create like dance music, electro music, that's what I would say. There were also 3 or 4 people from the Ekeldra Centre, part of the repertory company, who put on shows there. Anyway, after the initial walk around, we decided that we would split into smaller groups and see if we could pick anything up. Allegedly, one of the most haunted places within the Ekeldra Centre was the Green Room, which is where the actors or the musicians sat prior to going on stage, and several people had said that they had felt a presence in there. They had felt that they were being watched, and they also felt hands touching them. So several people did solo challenges in there. Out of the few that did it, I think there was only one who actually reported the sense of being watched and the feeling of a hand on his knee. The others that actually went through the solo challenge didn't really come up with anything conclusive or anything concrete, but this particular lad who belonged to the Ekeldra Centre actually stated that he had felt this hand on his knee, and I have no reason to doubt him, no reason at all. From there we went towards the front of the building, which is the chapel, for want of a better word. And just inside the door there's like a cloister type corridor, and several of us became aware of a spirit presence within there. And on speaking to everyone afterwards, each and everyone separately and singly believed that they had seen or felt the presence of a nun. Not surprising, considering it was a convent. But they also said that they were picking up on the energy of children, and in this cloistered area they had also heard children's laughter and children talking. They didn't understand what it was, purely because the children were speaking in Welsh. I mean, down on Anglesey, Welsh is their first language, so what else would you expect a spirit from 100 years ago to speak? We went up onto the stage, which is now where the high altar would have been when it was a church, and several of us sat round in a circle holding hands, and we were trying to contact the spirit world. And Kerry Jones, who was there, began to speak in Welsh because, again, Welsh was her first language. And as she was speaking and trying to contact the spirit world, a voice came into my head, bearing in mind I do not speak Welsh at all. And this voice was of a teenage guy, I suppose, teenage lad. And from what I remember, and if Gwa is watching this, she may correct me totally on it, but it sounded like Ruan do Garadi, which Kerry said was I love you. So the spirit person was actually conversing with Kerry through me, and he was saying that he loved her. Kerry was a teenager too, I think she was 19 at the time, which made perfect sense. We had several other little interactions whilst doing the séance, with different names, again all Welsh names that were coming up, like Blodwyn came up. There was just so many different names. Bethan came up, and oddly enough Bethan does work at the centre today, but whether this was a spirit speaking about Bethan or the spirit was called Bethan, I really can't tell you at this point in time, purely because it's so long ago I don't remember. At this point again we split into groups, and there was myself, Ben Hardcastle and Jordan Taylor, and we decided to go up into the projection room. As I say, the centre is now a cinema on the island as well. And leading from the projection room were a very steep staircase going up into a bell tower. And I must say at this point, the bell in the Akeldra bell tower was rung, and it rang for the first time in over 30 years. And the reason it rang was because Jordan Taylor headbutted it. Not purposefully, by accident, and he did have a lump to prove it, where he'd walked directly into this bell and it had rung. But it was nice to know that it still rang after all those years. Ben also went up the stairs to join Jordan in the bell tower, whilst I was setting up an Ouija board down in the projection area, the projection room. Ben and Jordan came down from the bell tower, and both of them said that they felt fingers get hold of the chains they were wearing round the neck, and both of them said that the chains had been pulled by unseen spirit hands on the way back down. And Ben also said that he had been pushed. He felt someone push him in his back as he came back down. We gathered around the Ouija board, we put our fingers on the planchette, and we began to talk to the spirit world. It was very quiet for about 15-20 minutes. But then all of a sudden, we were beginning to get answers, yes and no. Is there a spirit here? Yes. Are you male? Yes. Do you belong to the building? No. Things like that. And then we asked the spirit of the Ouija if it would help and use our energies to bring this A spirit through. And Ben will confirm this, that as our fingers were on the planchette and not one of us were pushing it, it actually spelt out Y-O-U W-I-L-L-D-I-E. So we were given the message there, you will die. Fortunately, none of us were particularly afraid of this spirit, and we asked again who he was, and this time it spelt out Jones-Thedeath, Jones the Death. This was spelt out quite clearly. We logged it all down, we wrote all the notes down, and we went back downstairs. Clearly we were a little shaken up by all this, and we were talking to one of the guys from the Kelder Repertory Company, and he did know some of the history of the building. And apparently, back in the days when it was a convent, several of the nuns had become pregnant. They'd been having sexual relations with the locals and, to some extent, some of the bishops too, who would visit the convent. And upon finding out they were pregnant, they used to use a local butcher who was Mr. Jones. And again, why not? Jones is a perfectly good Welsh name. And he became known as Jones the Death because after the nuns fell pregnant, they used to call on Jones to come and perform abortions. And perform abortions he did, and there were quite a lot of abortions done. And there's an area now to this day, which is at the back of the Kelder Centre, where some apple trees grow, and these apple trees were planted by the BON SAUVEUR nuns. And apparently, according to this guy who knew the history of the building, that beneath the roots of the apple tree were up to at least 23 aborted babies. And this was all done, of course, to prevent any scandal being shown about the church, about the convent, and to just cover everybody involved, which is a horrible thing when you think about it. So we all witnessed this, or at least Ben Jordan and myself witnessed this. And the people who were hanging around downstairs, they also were picking up on various voices, various shadows. Again, a lot of them said the shadows appeared to be as a nun, dressed as a nun. And Ben Jordan and myself came back downstairs and we stood by the stage. And if you look from the stage now towards the back of the Kelder Centre and the projection area, there is a window where the projector is. And I have a photograph of this to this day. And there was a figure stood looking out through that window, looking directly down on us who were gathered there. Everybody was accounted for, there was nobody else up in that building. Nobody at all. So that night, we did see spirit, we witnessed spirit, some were touched by spirit, and we got all that information from the Ouija board, which was confirmed by, as I say, a gentleman who knew the history of the building. And it was quite gratifying again to know that we had received confirmation of what we had experienced. The dawn was coming and it was time to leave and to go back to the bungalows at Triada Bay. It was an absolutely scorching day, and from 9 o'clock in the morning the sun was in the sky and it was at 80 degrees plus maybe, and we were all sat around in the sun recalling the events of the previous night. And it was there that Ben had a new title bestowed upon him, that of Lobster Boy, because he became so red with being in the sun, which was great. But Jordan, being the tough guy Jordan was, refused to have any kind of sun cream, but instead decided to use cooking oil. And by the end of the night, he actually had second-degree burns across his shoulders. and it was very uncomfortable. And on return from Triada Bay, he was actually off work for a fortnight because he couldn't wear his uniform as a nurse because it was so sore across the shoulders. But we had a great weekend, and we have been back to Triada Bay many times since. And the next investigation I will cover, we did one in Penrose Coastal Park, which is said to be haunted by a white lady. And we also did one in Dyn Ligwy near Moelvra, which is a Bronze Age village. I look forward to recalling those. I hope you've enjoyed what you've heard. And please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please click like. Feel free to leave a comment. Press the bell to get any further notifications. And thank you once again. Namaste.